Hello everybody, welcome back for another video. Hope you're all doing well and that you're all having a great day to start things off. Developers are eyeing the 16th of January 2019 as the date on which Constantinople, Ethereum's upcoming network hard fork, could launch. The upgrade for the world's second largest blockchain was originally targeted for November of this year, bringing with it a host of design changes aimed at streamlining the platform's code in a bid to boost performance. Yet the November launch window was ultimately due to unanticipated problems with the test release, necessitating a longer development period. While the 16th of January date was reached by way of a non-binding verbal agreement, it's not fixed or final. Indeed, developers on Friday's bi-weekly call said that Constantinople could be postponed further. I hope not, should additional problems arise. They said we can say mid-January. It doesn't make difference if we decide on a date or not. We can always postpone. This was said by Peter Silagli, one of the developers. Also during the call, developer Lane Redig shared research regarding Ethereum's so-called difficulty bomb. The difficulty bomb is an algorithm embedded within Ethereum's code that makes blocks steadily harder to mine and was put in place to add as an incentive for encouraging regular updates to the network. According to Redig, the difficulty bomb will be noticeable from January, leading to 30-second block times by April or May of next year. She said, so we have time. There's no crucial concern. Constantinople delays the difficulty bomb for a further 18 months, while also decreasing the Ethereum mining reward from 3 Ethereum to 2 Ethereum per block. Additionally, the upgrade features various optimization to the underlying Ethereum code. Whether Prog POW, that's the weird name, a change that would standardize Ethereum mining to general purpose hardware only. Blocking specialized ASIC miners will be considered for inclusion in Constantinople was not discussed during the call. However, developers reported issues regarding its implementation, stating that the formal specification of the code is incomplete. What we have that's most important here is, I guess, kind of really all of it at this point. Ethereum has had a long trek. It's been 2 years, and next year it'll be 3 years that we were promised some type of an upgrade. Like I said before, it does take a bit of time in order to have an upgrade for all of these systems and stuff like that. There's been a lot of talk amongst multiple cryptocurrency projects where people are very unhappy with ASIC mining, and this is part of the reason why it could be considered, I guess, why Ethereum is moving over to proof of stake and trying to implement this with Casper and the other upgrades that are supposed to happen after Constantinople. The point is that Constantinople is meant to be like the groundwork for everything else to be built on top of. I'm very excited, me personally, to have the mining reward get cut down from 3 to 2 Ethereum. I think this was definitely something that needed to happen. I'm hoping that along with this, that we also get some type of a tentative date in 2019 from the Ethereum group, that there will potentially maybe be an official hard cap on how many Ethereums will be minted, created, printed, digitally made, simply because side note, one of the things when you listen to people from Wall Street and they talk about what they find appealing about cryptocurrencies, specifically Bitcoin, is that the 21 million hard cap. The problem that we have right now, I think there's quote unquote, there's over 100 million Ethereum floating around out there, and it seems like it could go on forever. We heard Vitalik and a bunch of other people talk about maybe potentially we could have a hard fork at 120 million. I have a feeling that number won't really stick, simply because I think we'll get there a lot sooner than later. And I think as far as Ethereum has been so far, it seems to have taken a bit longer to be able to give us other upgrades and other updates and other stuff like that. Like, I think it takes at least like a year, if not 3 years, to be able to give proper information on how things are going to change. I could see an Ethereum that has like a hard cap of coins around 150 million. I wish it was 120. I think that's just me, my investor side. The point is, this is finally going to happen. I assume the difficulty bomb, what have you, being pushed back for another 18 months has to do with the fact that they're trying to stall a bit more before they do the other hard forks when it comes to Plasma, and Casper, whatever you kind of want to call them together. Simply because those, and Constantinople as well, these are going to be like major things that are going to completely change how we see Ethereum. I hope there's a bit of a bull run or bullish feeling when we finally do have this, because The idea has typically been over the last couple of years, whenever you have a cryptocurrency project, let's even focus directly on Bitcoin, and the mining reward gets cut down or cut in half or is lessened from what it was before, you typically see, sometimes maybe, allegedly, the price tick up a tiny bit simply because investors are more interested in something that is printing less of something, as opposed, like if they were raising it from 3 to 5, Ethereum's price would drop. But like I said, as this ends up happening, let's hope that this, they say that the 16th of January. Let's see if they actually end up doing it. It's been a long time coming for this update, and let's hope that that date is hopefully one day set in stone. Alrighty, let's move on. Next up, the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, or sometimes known as the SEC, has filed charges in the first ever case involving a decentralized exchange. The head of the SEC's new cyber unit has followed with a warning that decentralized exchanges must be compliant as well, adding that creators will be held responsible. On the 8th of November 2018, the SEC brought charges against the creator of decentralized exchange known as EtherDelta. We spoke about this. It had to be like exactly when this happened, which some argue is just a smart contract rather than a conventional cryptocurrency exchange. Yet, depending on who you, not to even dive too deep into this, a lot of people are talking about that they believe that simply because the SEC was able to charge the creator of EtherDelta, that EtherDelta is not a decentralized exchange, to not get it confused with other decentralized exchanges, and simply that EtherDelta was a smart contract running on top of a platform, and that would allow you to be able to store and trade and do stuff with your cryptocurrencies. But they're saying because the SEC was able to pretty much send someone a letter, this goes against the entire idea of what a decentralized exchange is, and therefore EtherDelta, according to a lot of people, was never a decentralized cryptocurrency exchange. Speaking to Forbes, Robert Cohen, chief of the SEC Division of Enforcement Cyber Unit, has now warned that using blockchain technology to create an exchange without centralized operation or management still leaves the technology's creator both responsible and liable. Cohen has said that focus is not on the service's label nor the technology used, but that, he said, and I quote, "The focus is on the function and what the platform is doing, whether it's decentralized or not, whether it's on a smart contract or not. What matters is it's an exchange." And the US does not like that. When you have a money transferring service where you are transferring money from one party to another, the US believes that you need to go through the SEC and tell them exactly what's going on. Part of the problem that they say that they had with EtherDelta was that EtherDelta had what's it called? The ERC20 tokens on their platform. And ERC20 tokens, as many of them came from ICOs, and the US believes that ICOs are also securities. Therefore, you have to go through the Securities and Exchange Commission because you are exchanging cryptocurrencies that are securities inside the United States. Kind of all really easy to kind of throw together. Decentralized exchange mechanisms like EtherDelta run on self-executing code connecting buyers and sellers in order for them to exchange directly with each other. In the case of EtherDelta, the charges were brought against its founder, Zachary Coburn, for an operating an exchange not authorized or exempted by the SEC. The SEC cyber unit ran by Cohen was created in 2017 as a direct result of the DAO scandal that happened. I think this was a hack that happened on the Ethereum network. EtherDelta is the first decentralized smart contract-based exchange with similarities to the DAO to face action. The DAO's creators themselves have never faced action from the SEC. However, the report issued by the SEC afterward, the 2017 DAO report, confirms that tokens, including DAO tokens, are securities. As such, these tokens and exchanges are subject to regulatory oversight of the SEC. Remember, for those who were here many moons ago, and I said I wonder how this was going to play out. I said there was a lot of talk at the beginning of this year, especially around February, March. Everyone's creating their own decentralized exchange. We're going to have a decentralized exchange, and this is going to happen, and they're going to change the way the cryptocurrency is going to be running. And I said, that sounds great. That sounds wonderful. Me myself personally, I am all for decentralized exchanges. I love the idea of decentralized exchanges. I love the idea of being able to not have to go through a centralized anything and simply having control of our money and what we do with it. There are people in power, or the forces that be, that do not necessarily agree with me. And it comes down right now to the SEC, simply because I told you that the U.S. government, and to be fair, it's many other governments as well, they're trying to figure out a way to, if they can't control the currencies themselves or the flow of them or the creation of them, especially as mining is done in other countries and the validation of the network is typically done in other countries as well, that they can stop the flow of what's happening inside their own country or inside their own city as far as not being able to register with the SEC. The problem that we have right now is I think it's the SEC or maybe the CFTC. They noted it had to be about 3-4 weeks ago right now. Remember the thing where they were trying to, they said if you create a smart contract platform and someone does something malicious with your platform, then you can be held accountable and then you will be in trouble and you will be put in jail. The problem with that is you can create anything and someone can find a way to do something malicious with it. And I am afraid that this is going to get a lot worse than it already is. First of all, there are a lot of, you can't logically tell someone who has a decentralized exchange where there is no central authority what they can and cannot do. I think this is a bit different in the mindset as far as what governments think or what government agencies or whatever you kind of want to call them, what they can do or have done in the past. They're used to being able to send someone a letter, say you can't do this, that operation gets shut down, and this is exactly what they did to the guy who was running Ether Delta, and this is why people are saying that it wasn't really that decentralized. But when you think that you can harass someone or fine them for creating a code that someone else does something malicious with, that's like the guy who created the internet and someone creating a website that has something illegal on it, and then you find the guy who created the internet simply because he created the basis of the code that built everything else around it. It's kind of weird. I don't know. First of all, decentralized exchanges are only going to get more powerful and more decentralized as time ends up going on. They're not going to be the same exact thing that we have right now. They're not going to be these like clunky, slow. They can't scale. They can only have a certain amount of people. You know, I told you guys before when I was using them, they had problems with like their passwords and stuff like that. That's not going to happen for a very long amount of time. In about 2 years, they're going to be better than the actual exchanges that we have right now. And then I wonder if it's going to hit the fan, if I can say it that way, because what then I told you guys before, what then happens when the governments can't send anyone a letter, when they can't control everything? I was listening to something a day or two ago, and they were talking about that they think that the privacy layers on top of Bitcoin, multiple privacy layers on top of Bitcoin, will be implemented over anywhere from the next 2 to 5 years. They're going to start to be rolled out slowly on side chains and stuff like that. What happens when we have a world where Bakkt is a thing and then, the rest of the world is using cryptocurrencies and buying lattes and buying shoes and buying other stuff? But when we have 5 different side chains and privacy layers on top of it and nothing can, what happens when decentralized exchanges are all that we use and all the cryptocurrencies that we use are also private? I don't think it's going to be too nice, but we're going to get there eventually. And I mean, we will definitely see how the world ends up turning out. I'm optimistically terrified. Let's move on. Next up, Shapeshift CEO, his name is Eric Voorhees, has said that the growing debt of the United States, which hovers at around $21.7 trillion with a T as of November, will inevitably cause a big spike in crypto. He said, when the next global financial crisis occurs and the world realizes organizations with $20 trillion in debt can't possibly ever pay it back and thus must print it instead, and thus fiat is doomed, watch what happens to crypto, end quote. Voorhees suggested that to repay the national debt of the United States, the government and the Federal Reserve will be forced to print more fiat money, leading to inflation and a decline in the purchasing power of the US dollar. I really don't even know where to begin in all of this. Like, this has been not even speculation. We know for a fact that this is actually getting pretty bad, and we've had news last week or the week before about there was rumors about a threat of China selling off their US debt, and I think like a large portion of this, it's definitely not 50%, maybe it's 10%. They own a lot of the US debt. The US owes a lot of debt to China. So if any country decides to call it in and say, hey, you remember that time I loaned you $1 trillion and the US doesn't have that $1 trillion? The idea is that the government will simply have to open up the printing press, print $1 trillion, send it on a boat or send it on a plane, rocket ship, something, get it to the other side. But when you print an extra $1 trillion that you have to pay, now imagine if this is the national debt. That's a lot of digits, and multiple countries call that in at the exact same time. that would be detrimental to the entire world's economy, but maybe not to crypto. BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager with more than $6.3 trillion in assets, that's a lot of money under management, is the latest major financial institution to express concerns regarding the rapidly increasing national debt of the United States. The conglomerate CEO, his name is Larry Fink, said that the U.S. government is heading towards a supply problem due to the country's increasing budget deficit. Beginning next year, Fink noted that the U.S. could be forced to borrow $1 trillion a year. The rising inflation rate of the U.S. dollar, as shown by the growing interest rate of the Federal Reserve, has become too high to sustain the economy. He said that could be the real issue related to everything, where we have interest rates becoming too high to sustain the economy with the growth interest rates. And then that's a huge number. Once again, I mean, it's like unspeculative speculation. The idea, and this is the kind of the weirdest part, is that this kind of all fits into the exact same thing. I know a lot of people don't really care for the tinfoil hat moments, if you kind of want to call them that, but everything is slowly aligning. We have those price predictions that Bitcoin in 2019 will hit 100,000, and then by 2021 will hit $1 million per coin. And this kind of all relatively aligns with all these major institutions talking about that the U.S. is headed on a slippery slope, and it also kind of coincides at the exact same time with the New York Stock Exchange and the NASDAQ opening their arms to crypto, talking about how it could be a relatively new asset class. What happens when the world's economy collapses and the new infrastructure that is cryptocurrency? What happens if we get a huge inflow of all this money? Depending on who you listen to, especially if you listen to like Bitcoin maximalists and stuff like that, they believe in the relative short term, and I want to say short term is about 2.5, 3 years. They believe that at some point crypto will be worth around at least $4 to $10 trillion as a whole, because of growing fears of hyperinflation from the US. Whether that's going to happen anytime soon, whether there will be some type of an easing of the amount of debt that they have, or maybe there's some other solution that we just can't think of right now. A lot of people think that this is definitely going to happen very soon, and that it could coincide with what people are calling a crypto boom, where people are terrified of what's happening, take their money out of the stock market, and therefore dump all their money into cryptocurrencies. I think that would be nice. Yeah. Next up. Throughout the better part of 2018, there have been intense talks about the possibility of the SEC approving a Bitcoin ETF. However, these expectations are yet to be realized, as the regulatory body keeps postponing its decision. Before announcing the possibility of considering the latest ETF proposed by Van Eck, the SEC had turned down 9 such applications so far. It cited lack of proper market regulation as one of the reasons for rejecting the proposals. In the SEC's view, the crypto market is still prone to manipulation, and allowing an ETF at this point would be a bad idea. The Winklevoss brothers have also submitted an ETF proposal. It was not approved. Was not. However, on its part, Van Eck has worked well to modify the proposals to match the SEC's expectations. With that, Van Eck hopes to run an ETF that would operate within the conventional parameters and under legal oversight. One of the people putting their best foot forward in support of a Bitcoin ETF is Gabor Gurbax. Gabor is Van Eck's Director of Digital Asset Strategy. Speaking in an interview with CNBC's Africa's Business segment, crypto trader Gabor said that the presence of an ETF would boost investor confidence and possibly bring in billions of dollars into the industry. Gabor issued that in the wake of such possibilities, the SEC ought to grab the chance to properly regulate the industry, which they have not done. However, such regulation would only be successful if there existed a functional ETF through which the investments would be channeled. Also, the operations of an ETF would help the authorities and industry players to better understand how decentralized currencies can fit in a regulated traditional market. I heard, obviously these are not even slight rumors, these are hyper rumors. People think, or are thinking right now, that because of ICE / the New York Stock Exchange getting into the crypto game, and as they already have all of the legal paperwork and stuff like that, that they could possibly be the first entity or company or group of people to launch a Bitcoin ETF because they already have all the paperwork. And, they have the track record. They already list ETFs. They already have securities and stuff like that on their platform. And therefore, there should be logically no reason for them not to be able to not only list other cryptocurrencies that may be considered securities, but also listing ETFs and stuff like that on the platform. A lot of people think that the Van Eck one is going to be one of the first that's going to be pushed through. A lot of people, I mean, everything is all just down to timing. No one knows exactly when any of this is going to happen, but people are gathering at this point. Don't hold me to this. These are not my words. From this day, right now, until, let's say, the last day of February, that at some point during that time that a Bitcoin ETF will be approved. Why, once again, why the market desperately needs an ETF in order to move? Still not 1,000% sure, but if that's what it's going to take to get us to 10 or 20x the prices that we have right now, then let's do it. Last up, blockchain will probably take a little longer to develop than the internet because it is much more complicated. This was said by Consensus creator Joseph Lubin. He told German media outlet 10T3N in an interview Cointelegraph auf Deutsch reported on the 9th of November. Lubin, who is also the co-founder of Ethereum, told reporters that blockchain technology is developing in a similar way to the web, citing its exponential growth with hundreds of projects that are already practical for humans to date. That's a weird sentence. Based on blockchain's use cases for decentralized cryptocurrencies, the digital entrepreneur also suggested that DLT, or distributed ledger technology, will be able to permeate society more than the internet and enable a decentralized internet or Web 3. Lubin, however, forecasts that the adoption of, my English is all over the place, adoption of blockchain on a mass scale will take longer than that of the internet. He said, blockchain projects will enable people to build more things that will come in handy again. That's how the web was developed. It will probably take a little longer because it is much more complicated. Also because we work on topics such as digital money. Blockchain will permeate society more than the internet. Everything will be networked in a Web 3, end quote. In the interview, Lubin stressed the fact that Consensus, an Ethereum-focused startup incubator and infrastructure development firm, was born prior to the release of Ethereum, with the goal of building the tools and infrastructure to enable a decentralized ecosystem in which Ethereum could function. Kind of right. At the moment right now, a lot of people think that as far as cryptocurrencies go, and as far as scaling and stuff like that, I mean, no blockchain that we have right now is capable of doing 1 million transactions per second, which is seen as like the golden number. Typically, if your blockchain can do more than 1,000 transactions per second, you are on par with Visa and MasterCard, as I believe that Visa can do 50,000 transactions per second. So if you read that, you're pretty good. So as far as cryptocurrencies and the expansion of like the payment networks and stuff like that within crypto, we're relatively pretty good. But a lot of people think that there is a lot that we do not know yet about blockchain and exactly what we will be able to do with it, depending on if you want to call it blockchain or distributed ledger technology. There's a whole open world. Like the idea kind of is, when you read around on crypto papers and stuff like that, they say 15 years ago, we didn't have Uber, we didn't really have Amazon, we didn't have Google as it is right now, we didn't have cryptocurrencies, we didn't have Instagram, Snapchat, no, the list goes on. Therefore, in 15 years from now, when the blockchain system has developed, they believe that we could have things that completely revolutionize the world as we have it today, but it'll take some time for us to officially get there. Alrighty, everyone, that is definitely going to do it for this video. Hope you're all having a great day, morning, afternoon, and or evening, wherever you are, wherever you might be. I hope it's absolutely fantastic. Thank you once again for watching and or listening. Let's hope that this upgrade actually goes off without a hitch. They had issues before where they reason they delayed it is because I think there was something wrong with it on the test net, and they said they would bring it back a little bit. As long as it happens, then I am happy. Thank you once again for watching and or listening. And yeah, I'll talk to you all soon. See you.